It is often said that trust serves as the bedrock upon which every family is built. Yet, what if a single secret, a solitary discovery, dismantles all that you held to be true? I'm referring to a betrayal that sends a jolt through your very core. It's the sort of experience that finds you paused in the midst of your existence, surveying your surroundings, questioning the authenticity of it all. This transcends mere storytelling. It is the essence of my existence. And I must say, nothing, truly nothing, could have equipped me for the revelations I stumbled upon. The precise instant my universe transformed is etched in my memory. Have you ever noticed how individuals often describe sensing something amiss deep within their core? That persistent sensation you can't quite dismiss, akin to a soft murmur in the recesses of your thoughts suggesting that something is amiss. It lingered with me for weeks, perhaps even months. I chose to overlook it. I reassured myself that it was merely a figment of my imagination. I found myself weary, caught in a web of overthinking, indulging in a touch of drama. Yet, beneath the surface, I was aware. I simply wished to remain unaware. The harsh reality of truth lies in its indifference to our preparedness for it. It approaches you regardless, and when it strikes, it shatters you. I was merely an ordinary wife, an ordinary mother. My affection for my family ran deep. I embraced my responsibilities and fulfilled every expectation placed upon me. Life may not have been flawless, but whose ever truly is? In that fleeting instant, a single, seemingly trivial occurrence transformed the entire landscape. I hadn't even been searching for it. I had no intention of prying, nor did I harbor any doubts. It was merely an unfortunate mishap, a turn of destiny, a fleeting look, a single misstep, a singular instant when the cosmos whispered, "Behold the existence you believe you understand." I long for the chance to return to the past. How I long to erase that image from my mind. Yet once an image is etched in your mind, it becomes impossible to erase it. This is not merely a tale of infidelity, I assure you. This situation transcends mere infidelity or the dissolution of a union. No, this delves deeper, into shadows more profound and intimately personal. The individual I discovered, the one concealing a secret so convoluted, so beyond belief, was someone I could never have anticipated. And when the truth struck me, it felt as though my heart had been violently torn from my chest. I can still recall that moment, rooted to the spot. Breath eludes me. Contemplating, how can this possibly be true? This simply cannot be occurring. Yet it was unfolding. Thus, it marked merely the inception. Before I share my discoveries, before I invite you to journey alongside me, I must ask you to do one thing. Join the journey of the shocking infidelity saga. What I am about to unveil will transform your perception of trust for all time. Believe me, this tale is just beginning to unfold. Reflecting on life, one realizes there are fleeting, seemingly insignificant instances that, with a touch more awareness, could have hinted at what was to come. Yet, hindsight can be a merciless companion. It reveals every sign you overlooked, every clue that lay plainly before you. Believe me, the indications were unmistakable. I simply had no desire to encounter them. For if I had acknowledged the reality unfolding within my own walls, I would have been compelled to confront a truth I was not yet prepared to confront. That the family I cherished, the ones I held dearest, were not the individuals I believed them to be. Allow me to transport you to a different time. To grasp the events that unfolded, one must first comprehend who we are. Once, joy filled my days. At the very least, that is what I believe I was. Perhaps I merely convinced myself of that truth. In any case, I fulfilled my obligations. I held the role of a wife, a mother. I crafted a sanctuary, nurtured a life, and devoted all that I possessed to my husband. Our paths crossed in the bloom of youth. We plunged swiftly. He possessed a captivating charm and an unwavering ambition. A man who entered a room and effortlessly commanded its presence. I cherished him deeply. Yet, at some point in the journey, a shift occurred. Marriage possesses a peculiar ability to evoke such sentiments. You enter with the belief that it revolves around affection, desire, and companionship. Yet, as time unfolds, it can transform into something wholly different. Habitual practice, separation, stillness. Initially, it was the little details. He frequently toiled into the late hours. I ceased inquiring about the state of my day. I ceased to recognize the moments when I styled my hair or made an effort to appear appealing for him. Then it evolved into greater matters. Abandoned meals. Unanswered phone calls. Exchanges that seemed more like duties than genuine instances of bonding. In the end, it seemed as though we were merely going through the motions of life. Two souls sharing a space, performing our parts, yet no longer truly perceiving one another. It was then that the loneliness began to creep in. It's peculiar, experiencing loneliness even within the confines of marriage. It's more painful than solitude, for there stands another beside you, yet their presence feels as distant as the stars. And then, there stood my son. He was once my darling, my silhouette. In his childhood, he trailed behind me at every turn, grasped my hand, kept me company as I prepared the meal, shared every detail of his day with me. We were nearly there, more intimate than the typical bond shared between mothers and sons. Yet, as time passed, he matured. Gradually, he began to distance himself. Initially, I believed it was just a part of the ordinary flow of life. Children mature. They require their own space. Yet, with him, it seemed to carry a different weight. It seemed as though he was transcending the mere act of growing up. He was fading away. One morning, I opened my eyes to the unsettling truth that I scarcely recognized him any longer. He ceased to share the details of his life with me. He began to secure his door with a lock. His phone lay perpetually face down, perpetually alive with unspoken messages that linger in the air. There were evenings when he failed to return home. There were days when he scarcely uttered a word to me. And when I would inquire, "Is everything all right?" he would merely incline his head, cast me aside. I attempted to convince myself that it was just a part of the ordinary flow of life. He was merely occupied, that he possessed a life uniquely his own. Yet deep within me, I was aware. A sense of unease lingered in the air. In retrospect, I realize I ought to have exerted more effort. I ought to have inquired further. Had I been more aware, perhaps I could have anticipated what lay ahead. Perhaps I could have intervened. Perhaps I wouldn't find myself positioned in the very heart of my own dwelling, gazing at my son. My hands tremble. My heart is shattering, contemplating a question I never imagined I would find myself pondering. Who might this individual be? And what, pray tell, has he done that is so much worse? Yet, in that moment, those questions remained unvoiced, due to my lack of knowledge. Not at this moment. Yet, I was on the brink of discovery. By the time I finally acted, the moment had slipped away, leaving me with a sense of irrevocable loss. I had always believed that when life takes a turn that alters everything, you would sense it deeply within you. A cautionary note, a change in the atmosphere, a fleeting instant when the cosmos pauses in anticipation. Yet that is not the way it unfolds. Life doesn't offer a grand crescendo before it snatches the earth from beneath your feet. It unfolds in the tiniest, most hushed instances, the sort that requires no second thought. A phone vibrates incessantly on the kitchen counter. Thus began the journey, The hour was late. The sort of late when the entire house lay in slumber, enveloped in a haunting stillness that can only be found in the depths of night. Seated at the dining table, I cradled a lukewarm cup of tea, my gaze fixed vacantly on the wall before me. Lately, I found myself engaging in that quite frequently, merely occupying that space, adrift in the labyrinth of my own musings. Restlessness keeps sleep at bay. Exhausted to the point of inaction, and then it reached my ears. A subtle tremor. Initially, I chose to overlook it. Yet, it buzzed once more. Once more. The phone belonging to my son. It rested quietly on the counter, waiting to be noticed. Prostrate. That moment held a certain quality that compelled me to stop and reflect. Perhaps it was the time of day. Perhaps it was the manner in which my insides coiled with unease. The soft murmur of a voice within me beckons, urging me to observe. I reassured myself that I was being absurd. He had reached adulthood. He possessed a life, companions, and a profession. Naturally, he would receive messages, yet it buzzed once more. Before I could rein in my impulse, my gaze darted to the screen, only for a fleeting moment, a single fleeting gaze. And that was all it required. A title. The name was unfamiliar to me. It was not among his acquaintances, not a colleague, a name belonging to a woman, and beneath it, I can hardly fathom that we are embarking on this journey. My breath hitched. For a fleeting instant, I convinced myself it was merely inconsequential. I must have simply misinterpreted it. It was merely something pure. Yet, within the depths of my being, I was aware of the truth. It transcended mere words. The tone was everything. It held an air of mystery, shrouded in secrecy, a secret desire, shrouded in mystery. In an instant, the unease that had lingered within me for months transformed into something altogether different. A chillier sensation. Something genuine. I averted my eyes. My heart raced uncontrollably. My hands were slick with clamminess. Uncertainty enveloped me as I grappled with the reasons behind my reaction. He had reached adulthood. He was fully entitled to pursue romantic connections, to possess a romantic partner. Yet, what is the reason? What made this seem so off? Footsteps echoed in the silence. His. I stood still, my thoughts swirling in a tempest. I had not laid a finger on his phone. I had committed no offense. Yet, as he crossed the threshold into the shadowy kitchen, an expression on his face sent a shiver through my gut, tightening it further. His eyes darted to the counter without hesitation. His entire body tightened, for a fleeting moment before he willed himself to ease into relaxation. His hand darted toward his phone with an urgency that was almost palpable, as if he feared I had witnessed something, as if he were concealing a secret. I forced down a lump in my throat, feigning indifference. "You're awake at this hour," I remarked, maintaining a steady tone. He averted his gaze from me. Indeed, rest evaded me. His fingers lingered above the phone, pausing for just a heartbeat before he turned it face down and tucked it away in his pocket. My breath caught in my throat. I had witnessed it. The fleeting pause of uncertainty, the fleeting shadow of remorse. I would like to inquire. I wished to express. Who might that be? Yet a part of me hesitated. Perhaps I feared what the answer might reveal. Instead, I merely nodded, observing as he reached for a glass of water, his shoulders rigid, his movements taut with unspoken tension. We lingered in that heavy, oppressive quiet, both of us avoiding the unspoken barrier that had abruptly emerged between us. In that instant, clarity washed over me. A sense of unease lingered in the air. A palpable unease hung in the air. I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. I ought to have released it. I ought to have turned my back on that kitchen, hidden that moment away within me, and persuaded myself that it was all a figment of my imagination. Yet I found myself unable to do so. For once suspicion takes hold, it does not remain dormant. It flourishes, it unfurls, it infiltrates your thoughts, distorting reality, leading you to doubt even the beliefs you once held as unshakable. What could possibly be worse? It transforms you into a stranger, a shadow of the person you once knew. That night, sleep eluded me. As I reclined in bed, my gaze fixed on the ceiling, I found myself endlessly revisiting that moment in my mind. His moment of hesitation. He clutched his phone as if it were a vital connection to the world. The manner in which he averted my gaze. It was merely a message, merely a name, merely a handful of words. Then why did it seem as though my entire universe was shifting beneath me? The following morning, I reassured myself that I was merely overanalyzing the situation. I was being utterly absurd. Yet, the instant he entered the kitchen, I realized I was not. He appeared transformed, beyond mere fatigue, far from merely being distant, yet cautious, as if he were preparing for impact, as if he was aware that I had witnessed something I shouldn't have. In that moment, I sensed it. The transformation. The moment strikes when you come to understand that a beloved person, someone who has been a part of your life for as long as you can remember, is harboring a secret from you. And in an instant, every small detail begins to seem askew. I began to observe more intently, not out of a desire to ensnare him in any wrongdoing. Not that I sought out conflict. Yet, I found myself unable to dismiss it any longer. As I continued to observe, my awareness deepened. The twilight hours, the hushed conversations on the line. He recoiled at the sound of his father's voice, and the door, firmly secured. The door had always stood unbarred, a silent invitation to the world beyond. Not during his teenage years, not even in moments of anger directed towards us. Yet now, at that moment, it remained perpetually secured. I found myself poised outside his room, my hand lingering just above the doorknob, caught in a moment of uncertainty. What was I truly engaged in? Was I truly on the verge of knocking? What could I possibly express? Hey, I noticed an unusual message on your phone, and it's left me wondering if there's something you're not sharing with me. I was unable to do so. I would not. As soon as the words escaped my lips, I realized there was no turning back. Perhaps I was not quite prepared for that moment. Yet, the most troubling aspect, the aspect that haunted my thoughts in the stillness of the night, it wasn't merely the secrecy. A sensation began to unfurl within my chest. This transcended his own narrative. The focus was on me. This was more than mere unease. It transcended mere maternal intuition. It was an essence that ran far beneath the surface. A feeling so profound, it eludes even the most articulate expression. An emotion that twisted my insides, set my hands trembling, and quickened the beat of my heart. An emotion I ought not to have experienced. An inexplicable sensation enveloped me, and I loathed myself for it. I began to interrogate every aspect of my existence. What was it about this that troubled me so deeply? What made it feel so intimate? Had I truly lost my husband in countless ways, and now faced the heart-wrenching reality of losing my son as well? Had I truly spent years in a state of invisibility, only to find that the one person I believed I could still grasp was now eluding? My touch? Or could it have been something entirely different? Perhaps something with a more sinister edge. There was a truth I found difficult to acknowledge, even within the confines of my own mind. I ought to have faced him. Answers should have been demanded by me. Yet I refrained. Instead, I committed the gravest error one can make when they sense that a secret lies hidden just beyond their grasp. I lingered in anticipation, and I observed, and I allowed it to envelop me completely, until only the truth remained. And at that point, the hour had grown exceedingly late. It wasn't something I sought out. I had no intention of discovering anything. However, I did. And from that instant onward, everything would change irrevocably. It began with a simple, unassuming moment. As I tidied up his room, I found myself immersed in the task at hand. I'm aware. He was an adult, and I had no justification for being in that space. Yet the persistence of old habits is a formidable challenge. In his younger days, I would often find myself tidying up for him. On that day, I reassured myself that I was merely tidying things up. That is all. Merely engaging in a bit of dusting, merely arranging a handful of shirts with care, simply embracing the role of a mother. Yet, in that moment, my gaze fell upon it. A simple box, concealed in the shadows beneath his bed. It was a diminutive wooden box, secured with a fragile latch. Everything seems perfectly ordinary, doesn't it? Yet, it truly was, as it was something I had never encountered before. In an instant, my heart raced with fervor. In an instant, clarity washed over me. Something lay hidden within, a secret I was never meant to uncover. I ought to have turned and left. I ought to have honored his privacy. Yet, the matter of suspicion? Concerning the concept of fear? It compels you to undertake actions you never imagined you would embrace. My hands acted with a will of their own, racing ahead of my thoughts. The latch sprang open with effortless ease. It seemed to come with an effortless grace, as if it had been anticipating my arrival, as if the truth had been quietly waiting in the shadows all along, merely biding my time, anticipating discovery. Oh, how I regret the moment I dared to lift the lid of that box. The initial sight that greeted me was a collection of letters, written by hand. Countless pages filled with the flow of inked words, neatly folded, crushed together as if seeking refuge from the brightness. My throat constricted. My hands trembled as I reached for one. I reassured myself that it was insignificant. Perhaps aged correspondence, perhaps a relic from the past. Yet I found myself immersed in the pages, and my blood froze in my veins. You occupy my thoughts incessantly. Whenever we find ourselves in each other's company, a spark ignites within me, breathing life into my very being once more. I'm aware of the error in my ways, yet I find myself unable to resist. You evoke emotions within me that have long been dormant. Each sentence cut into me with the precision of a sharp blade. This was not a mere dalliance. This was no mere infatuation. The experience was nothing short of intense, confidential, prohibited. Breath eluded me. With a sense of urgency, I rifled through the letters. My thoughts are whirling. My sight is fading into a haze. And then it came into view, an email in printed form. One that went beyond mere words about emotions. A mention of a location, a place of refuge and comfort. A rendezvous, a gathering of minds. I clutched the paper with such intensity that my knuckles blanched to a ghostly white. It had transcended mere words. It was genuine. This was unfolding. And to make matters worse, I remained in the dark about who he was meeting. The letters fell from my grasp. Every inch of my body ignited with an intense heat. Denial gripped me tightly, shouting for me to cease, to retreat, to feign ignorance of it all. Yet, I had. And now, the question that had been lingering in my mind for weeks ignited with an intensity I could no longer ignore. Whom might you be referring to? Whom was he encountering? Whom was he stealthily slipping away to rendezvous with? Who could possibly be the one behind those late-night messages to him? What is the reason behind this? What was it about the answer that filled me with such dread? I forcefully pushed the letters back into the box. My hands are fumbling. My breath comes in short gasps, sudden, jagged breaths. My son was involved in an affair. It was evident beyond doubt. But with whom? Someone from the workplace? Is it a friend? Is there someone more seasoned? Someone he ought to avoid? Or perhaps something even more dire? There was a thought that lingered in the depths of my mind, one I found too difficult to voice. A tide of nausea washed over me, stirred by those thoughts. I rose unsteadily, clutching the edge of his bed for support. I needed to uncover the truth. I needed to uncover the truth. The way my stomach twisted and turned, the manner in which my instincts cried out to me, informed me that whatever this may be, it surpassed the depths of my darkest imaginings. I found myself unprepared for the reality that lay before me, not in the slightest. I needed to uncover the truth. I needed to witness it firsthand. For regardless of the multitude of letters I discovered, regardless of the countless hushed summons I caught wind of, regardless of how loudly my instincts urged me, a fragment of my being remained tethered to the final strand of hope. A fragment of my being that craved to be mistaken. A fragment of my being that yearned to be mistaken, for the simple reason that if I were not, if my thoughts held any truth, then my world was not merely destined to shatter. It was on the brink of breaking apart. That fateful night when I chose to follow him. It seemed as though my body had become a foreign entity, no longer belonging to me. A profound numbness enveloped me, concerning matters of intrigue, for matters that were never meant to be unveiled. I maneuvered into a parking space, ensuring it was distant enough to evade any attention. And then I lingered in anticipation. Minutes elongated, resembling the passage of hours. His car came into view. Yet he remained elusive to my gaze. Not at this moment. And then, motion. The door on the driver's side swung open. And there he stood. My child, my little one. Attired with an elegance that seems almost excessive for a laid-back evening. There was a palpable tension in the way he moved. There was a distinct intention in the manner of his stride. And then, a different vehicle arrived, adjacent to his. My hands clutched the steering wheel with such intensity that my knuckles blanched to a stark white. I inclined my body slightly, drawing closer, the mist of my breath clouding the glass. My whole being is paralyzed. The door on the passenger side of the other vehicle swung open. A silhouette emerged from the shadows. And then, I beheld her. In that moment, time itself came to a standstill. It was she. My dearest companion. The woman with whom I had entrusted my most profound secrets. The woman who had occupied the seat opposite me during innumerable coffee rendezvous. Chortling, attentively absorbing the sounds around me, offering me guidance. The woman who stood by my side as my marriage began to unravel. The woman who grasped my hand as tears streamed down my face, mourning the chasm that had grown between me and my husband. She. The pressure in my chest grew so intense that I feared I might lose consciousness. My vision became obscured. The sound echoed in my ears. A sensation of drowning enveloped me. What is the reason for this? This was more than mere betrayal. It was a blade, pierced directly through my heart, winding with each fleeting moment. They failed to cast a glance in any direction. No one bothered to glance around and see if they had an audience. They had settled into a state of ease, excessively acquainted, as if they had rehearsed this moment 100 times prior. She offered him a smile, made contact, gently brushed his arm. And what of him? He permitted her. He embraced it fully. In that moment, they vanished into the embrace of the hotel. Motion eluded me. Breath eluded me. This was more than merely my son engaging in deceit. This was more than a mere betrayal by my closest confidant. This represented the essence of both individuals, in unison, concealing a truth so unfathomable, so beyond belief, that my mind could not begin to comprehend it. Yet, what of my heart? My heart understood. It had been aware from the very beginning. What comes next? At this moment, the truth could no longer be evaded, for I had witnessed it. I witnessed it firsthand, and everything would change forever. The journey home is a blur in my memory. The act of turning the key in the ignition escapes my memory. I can't recall the moment I exited that parking lot, abandoning them as they faded into the confines of that hotel room. The stoplights fade from memory. The turns blur into obscurity, and the presence of other cars dissolves into the background of my mind. What lingers in my mind is the profound silence. The overwhelming, stifling quiet enveloped me, dense and unyielding, bearing down on my chest like an unshakable burden. The silence was anything but genuine. The world continued its relentless motion. Vehicles continued to speed by. The radio continued to hum gently in the background. Yet within me, an emptiness resided. Only a void remains. As I finally eased my car into the driveway, the house appeared transformed. Not in a physical sense, in a manner so subtle that it would escape the attention of others. Yet, to me, it had lost its essence of home. It resembled a grand performance space, an intricately crafted facade, a setting where we each embraced our characters, husband, wife, son, friend. Yet now I was aware that the narrative was a fabrication. At that moment, I understood that lurking beneath the facade, decay was taking hold. I crossed the threshold. The atmosphere hung heavy, an unsettling stillness enveloping everything. The lights remained unlit. I kept my coat on. I simply remained in place, enveloped in a stillness that speaks of winter's embrace. My mind echoed with the haunting images, a relentless nightmare that seemed to stretch into eternity. I found no need to look back. I had already sensed it was him, my child. The rhythm of my heartbeat echoed in my ears while I heard him navigate through the house, keys clattering onto the counter. A relaxed breath escapes, the soft thud of his shoes as they were cast aside. Another night unfolds. Another night, unremarkable and routine. As if he hadn't just shared a hotel room with the woman I had trusted above all others. As if he bore no burden of a secret that had the power to shatter my world. I tilted my head just a fraction, merely a glimpse of him from the periphery of my vision. As he scrolled through his phone, the gentle light of the screen cast a soft glow upon his face. He remained oblivious to my presence, standing there unnoticed. He remained utterly unfazed, and that was the moment that shattered me. Not merely the actions he had taken, yet the reality that he remained untroubled by it. That he could simply stroll into this space, the very home I crafted, the life I bestowed, upon him without a trace of remorse or doubt, as if it held no significance. As if I held no significance. In that fleeting moment, the urge to scream surged within me. I longed to seize his phone, hurl it against the wall, and witness it explode into a myriad of fragments, mirroring the way he had broken me. I felt an overwhelming urge to seize his face, to compel him to meet my gaze and demand, "How could you do this? How could you do this to me? What is the duration? For how long has this been unfolding?" Yet I refrained. I was unable to, for if I were to part my lips, I harbored doubts about the words that might escape. Thus, I chose to look away. I ascended the staircase. Silence prevails. Sleep eluded me that night. There I lay in bed, gazing at the ceiling, as the same thoughts circled relentlessly in my mind, like vultures waiting for their moment. Ought I to confront him? Ought I to reveal their true nature? Should I confide in my husband? What action would he take? What might he express? Would he truly care? And her, my so-called best friend, the woman who had once been my trusted confidant, would she even feign remorse? Or had she come to the conclusion that I was unworthy of the truth? As dawn broke, the sound of my phone pierced the stillness of the morning. The identity was unmistakable, even without a glance at the screen. Her name illuminated the screen, pure and ordinary, just as it always had. Yet now it carried an unsettling taint. I gazed at it, my heart racing, my grip on the device growing firmer. I might provide a response, might insist on the truth. I could compel her to voice it, to acknowledge the truth. Alternatively, I might choose to feign, act as if I were unaware. Imagine that all remained unchanged. Act as if I wasn't crumbling within. The phone persisted in its relentless ringing, amplified, increasingly persistent. My hands quivered with uncertainty, and then I allowed it to slip into voicemail, for the simple reason that I was unprepared. Not at this moment. What about my husband, the man who was meant to understand me more deeply than anyone else? He was utterly bewildered, utterly oblivious to the tempest gathering just beneath his very gaze. Sitting at the breakfast table, he flipped through the newspaper, sipping his coffee as if today were just another day, as if he hadn't already lost me, as if he were blissfully unaware that I stood mere moments from setting this entire house ablaze. I settled into my seat opposite him, my body rigid, my thoughts dulled. I swirled my coffee, gazing into the depths of the liquid, seeking clarity amidst the chaos. Should I reveal it to him? Should I hold it within? Should I allow this secret to decay my very essence from within? The words lingered tantalizingly on the tip of my tongue, anticipating, yearning for a voice to be heard. Yet they never arrived, for I understood that once that moment arrived, retreat would be impossible. Thus, I consumed them whole. As I lifted the cup to my lips, I savored the rich aroma before taking a sip of my coffee. I feigned, for yet another day. Another agonizing day stretches before me. Have you ever experienced the sensation of inhabiting a body that felt foreign to you? As if you were gliding through the fabric of existence, moving through the routine, articulating thoughts, inhale, exhale, living in the present moment. Yet, everything seemed to lose its authenticity. That was indeed I. I had ceased to be a person. I existed as a mere shell, a vacant, desolate husk of the woman I once was. Within me there existed but a singular essence, a query, an isolated, relentless, unforgiving inquiry. What should I do next? In the days that followed, I found myself ensnared within the confines of my own thoughts. Each exchange seemed insincere. Each instant was akin to traversing a fragile surface, poised for the inevitable shatter beneath my weight. I hardly consumed any food. Sleep eluded me. I scarcely drew a breath. Each time I allowed myself a moment of pause, that question would resurface, creeping into my thoughts once more. What should I do next? Should I share this with my husband? Should I take a moment to sit him down, meet his gaze, and reveal the truth? The son he cherishes, the boy he nurtured, the one he would go to great lengths for, has been involved with my closest friend. Should I utter those words aloud? Do I observe the transformation of his expression, the disintegration of his reality, mirroring the way mine once fell apart? Should I grasp the match and ignite the flames that will consume this entire family in their wake? And if I were to take that step, what unfolds next? Should I remain silent? Should I entomb this secret within the depths of my soul, ensuring it remains forever shrouded in darkness? Should I feign ignorance? Should I continue residing in this house, sharing meals at this table, encountering my son in the hallway, feigning ignorance to the deception etched across his features? Should I pick up the phone when she reaches out? Should I maintain my smile when my husband inquires about my well-being? Do I continue to exist in this life that has become so unrecognizable to me? Should I set it all ablaze? My perspective on my son has shifted profoundly. I observed him intently, scrutinizing his every move, hanging on to each word that escaped his lips. Was he aware that I was aware? Was it visible in my gaze? Did he notice how my hands shook as I poured my coffee, the way my voice faltered when I addressed him? Or did he believe I remained oblivious? Are you still unaware? Yet she remains his mother, the woman he once held in trust, once cherished, once revered. Now, uncertainty clouded my understanding of our connection. Perhaps he wasn't too. And then she appeared. Her name lingered on my phone's screen. Calls that go unanswered. Messages awaiting your attention. She awaited my arrival. She sensed that something was amiss. She was compelled to. Yet she persisted in her efforts, as if she still believed she could charm her way out of this predicament. As if she still believed she could deceive me, just as she had been doing all along. What could possibly be more disheartening? She transcended the role of a mere best friend. She was the sole remnant of my world. The sole presence that stood by my side, offering an ear, providing solace, and evoking laughter when I believed it was beyond my reach. She had always been my confidant. What comes next? She was the cause of my restless nights. I found myself pondering this same question repeatedly. How could I have missed this? Was I truly that oblivious? Was I truly that foolish? Or perhaps something even more dire? Was I simply not sufficient? Was I truly so emotionally detached, so far removed, so consumed by my own suffering that my son sought solace in other places? Had I truly undertaken this? Did I nudge him in her direction? Was this destined to happen? Was this what had been patiently awaiting my discovery all this time? The burden of the secret bore down on me, growing more oppressive with each fleeting moment. Each breath I drew seemed to constrict around me, as if I were drowning in the very air I needed to survive. This isn't what I was made for. It was never my destiny to bear such a weight, so grotesque, so fundamentally flawed. Yet, to speak the truth would mean more than merely releasing it. I would lay waste to all that stands before me. I found myself uncertain about whether I was truly prepared for such a thing. Doubt lingered in my mind, casting shadows over my readiness. I took the only course of action available to me. I found myself seated at the crossroads of existence, submerged beneath the heavy burden of my own understanding, and I pondered, for perhaps the final moment, what course of action lies before me now. For regardless of the path I chose, everything would forever be altered. Now, I direct my attention to you. I find myself lacking the answers. For countless nights, I have found myself gazing at the ceiling, contemplating every conceivable option. Yet the answer remains elusive. Therefore, I must inquire, what course of action would you take? Would you dare to confront him? Could you gaze into your child's eyes and pose a question that would linger forever, unerasable? Would you reveal the truth about her? The woman who was once your dearest companion? Would you share this with your husband? Or would you choose to remain silent? Would you allow this secret to dwell within you, gnawing at your insides, tainting every conversation, every glance, every moment that once felt so ordinary? Could you feign ignorance of what you witnessed? Would you continue as if nothing had occurred? I seek understanding. I must seek the truth. This narrative transcends my own experience. This is the sort of treachery that shatters lives. And I am aware that I am not alone in having experienced this place. Have you ever experienced the sting of betrayal from those you hold dear? Have you ever discovered a truth that you long to forget? Have you ever experienced the burden of a secret that belonged to someone else? We invite you to express your reflections in the comments below. Perhaps, just perhaps, there exists someone beyond my reach who holds the answer I seek. There are constant cautions about those who could inflict pain upon you. Beware of those you do not know. For adversaries, for those who linger on the periphery, gazing inward. Yet, they fail to caution you about those who linger beside you. Those who understand you most deeply. The individuals in whom you place your utmost confidence. For when betrayal arrives, it often springs from the most unexpected source. At times it emerges from those dear to your heart, the very individuals you would have bet your heart would never bring you pain. And when it occurs, there is no return from it.